The steak was still warm when she destroyed my life. She announced her affair at my celebration dinner. 20 witnesses watched her thank her lover for teaching her honesty. While she posted videos about authenticity and growth, I was erasing myself from every system she could access. Changed my name, changed my life, became someone she'd never find. But she did find me. 3 years too late. And the man she found didn't care anymore. My name is Jason Hartley. I'm 41 years old. And until 3 years ago, I thought I had it all figured out. Regional Director for Coastal Crown Hotels, 15 properties stretching from Maine to Georgia, a corner office that overlooked Boston Harbor, and a wife who I believed was my partner in building something that mattered. Samantha came from Toronto, brought that polished Canadian charm that made investors feel comfortable and staff feel valued. We've been married 9 years. She had a son, Oliver, from her first marriage. 14 now. I've been there since he was 5, taught him to ride a bike, sat through every parent-teacher conference, paid for his braces. He called me Jason, not Dad, but I never pushed it. I figured love showed up in actions, not titles. The dinner was supposed to be a celebration. Our corporate team had just closed the acquisition of 3 boutique properties in Charleston, a deal I'd been working on for 18 months. My late father's business partner, Gerald Stone, had flown in from Phoenix. 20 people gathered at the Harbor View, the flagship hotel in our portfolio. White tablecloths, champagne already poured, lobster bisque making its way out from the kitchen. I was halfway through thanking everyone when Samantha stood up. She wore that emerald dress, the one I bought her for our anniversary. Her smile was bright, practiced, the kind she used for corporate events. I actually have something to say, Samantha announced, her voice cutting through the low hum of conversation. I looked up at her, still holding my glass, thinking maybe she was going to toast the team. Gerald raised his eyebrows, encouraging. I've been doing a lot of soul-searching lately, she continued, and something in her tone made my chest tighten. And I've realized that I've been living inauthentically. I've been in a relationship that no longer serves my growth. The room went silent. Someone's fork touched their plate, a small clink that seemed deafening. I've been seeing someone else, Samantha said, her eyes scanning the room, but never quite landing on me. His name is Brett. He's helped me understand that I deserve to be with someone who truly sees me. Jason, I'm grateful for everything. I really am. But I need to be honest with everyone here. This marriage is over. I felt every eye turn toward me. Gerald's face went pale. My assistant, Claire, looked like she might cry. But I didn't move, didn't shout, didn't ask questions. I just set down my glass, pulled my wallet from my jacket, and placed my credit card on the table. Separate checks. I said to the server who appeared, looking mortified. I signed a receipt, added a 30% tip because none of this was the staff's fault, stood up, and buttoned my jacket. Then I walked out of that restaurant without looking back. Behind me, I heard Gerald's chair scrape against the floor, heard him say something sharp to Samantha, but I was already gone. In the parking garage, I sat in my car for exactly 3 minutes. Then I drove to my office, grabbed my laptop and 3 file boxes I prepared 6 months earlier, and headed to a storage unit I'd rented under a name Samantha had never heard. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. When you love someone who's capable of public betrayal, you don't wait for the bomb to drop. You build a bunker first. The storage unit smelled like concrete and old cardboard. I'd rented it 14 months ago under the name James Hartford, paid cash for a year up front, told the manager I was storing inventory for a side business. He didn't ask questions. People rarely do when you show up with hundreds in cash and a story that sounds boring enough to be true. Inside, I'd stashed everything I needed for this exact moment. A duffel bag with clothes, toiletries, 2 pairs of boots, a laptop with encrypted files, $47,000 in cash, pulled from dividend payments on a small LLC my father had set up before he died. Samantha didn't know about it. She'd never asked about my father's estate beyond the hotels, never cared about the paperwork I signed every quarter. I changed out of my suit in the dim fluorescent light, pulled on jeans and a flannel shirt, laced up the boots, left the Tom Ford jacket hanging on a hook like a shed skin. Then I drove my Mercedes to a commuter lot off Route 95, locked it, left the keys in the wheel well, and walked 3 blocks to where I'd parked my backup vehicle 2 weeks ago. A 2001 Ford F-150, primer gray, registered to James Hartford, paid for in cash from a guy in Quincy who was just happy to see it go. It started on the second try, belched smoke, and sounded like it had bronchitis. Perfect. I stopped at a gas station outside Providence, bought a prepaid flip phone, and made one call. Drew Patterson answered on the third ring, his voice thick with sleep. "This better be good, Jason. It's 1 a.m. "It's time," I said. Drew, my lawyer, and the closest thing I had to a brother since college, didn't hesitate. "The documents. File them tomorrow morning. Everything we discussed." "You sure about this?" Drew asked, and I could hear him moving now, probably reaching for a notepad. "Once this starts, there's no walking it back." I watched a semi-truck pull into the gas station, its engine rumbling like distant thunder. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. "All right," Drew said. "Consider it done. Where are you headed?" "You don't need to know that yet." "Jason." His voice softened. "You okay?" I looked at my reflection in the truck's side mirror. Same face, different eyes. "I will be." By dawn, I was checked into a motel in New Hampshire under James Hartford. The room had wallpaper from 1987 and a mattress that groaned when I sat on it. The view was a parking lot and a Dunkin' Donuts. I lay on the bed fully clothed, staring at the water-stained ceiling, and thought about Oliver. The kid didn't ask for any of this. Didn't ask for his mother to be who she was. Didn't ask for me to walk away. But I couldn't stay. Not for him. Not for anyone. Because if I stayed, I'd become the kind of man who accepts betrayal just to keep the furniture arrangement intact. I pulled out the flip phone and typed a message I'd never send. "I'm sorry, kid. You deserved better than all of us." Then I deleted it and turned off the phone. The motel room had a coffee maker that sputtered like it was dying. I made a cup anyway, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened my laptop. Drew had sent an encrypted email at 6:23 a.m. with a single line, "Documents filed." The clock is ticking. That meant Samantha would find out by noon, maybe sooner if she tried to access any of our accounts. The joint checking, the savings, the investment portfolio tied to the hotel management company. All of it locked behind clauses she'd signed 9 years ago and probably never read. Prenuptial agreement, page 17, subsection D. In the event of verified infidelity by either party, all jointly held assets revert to the non-offending spouse's sole control, pending dissolution proceedings. We'd signed it 2 weeks before the wedding. She'd laughed, called it overkill, said she'd never cheat. I'd believed her then. My father had insisted on it anyway. I pulled out a manila envelope I'd been carrying in the duffel bag for over a year. It had been in my father's safe deposit box, marked with my name and a date. Open only if necessary. I'd opened it 6 months ago, the night I confirmed what Samantha was doing. Inside was a letter in my father's handwriting, shaky from the illness that eventually killed him. "Jason, if you're reading this, something went wrong. Either with business or with love, probably love. I married your mother when I was 23 and divorced her when I was 30. She was beautiful and ambitious, and somewhere along the way, she forgot we were supposed to be partners, not competitors. Don't let guilt trap you. Don't let anyone convince you that staying is noble when leaving is survival. You're my son, and I know you're loyal to a fault. But loyalty without reciprocity is just volunteering to drown. I've set up a secondary LLC under Hartford Industries. The dividends go to an account only you can access. Use it. Disappear if you need to. Build something new. And for God's sake, don't let anyone make you feel weak for choosing yourself. Love, Dad." I read it 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. My father had known. Somehow, he'd known this day would come. My burner email buzzed with forwarded notifications. The old iPhone was dead by now, drowned under the faucet back at the house, but I'd set up forwarding before I left it there. 17 missed calls from Samantha, 12 texts, 3 voicemails. I didn't listen to them. I already knew what they'd say. Confusion, anger, accusations that I was overreacting, that I was being childish, that we needed to talk like adults. But here's the thing about talking. It requires 2 people who respect each other. And respect, once shattered, doesn't glue itself back together just because someone says sorry. I opened a new text on the flip phone and sent it to Drew. "How long until she figures out the visa situation?" His response came fast. "Immigration attorney estimates 3 weeks. She's on a spousal visa. Divorce terminates it. She'll have 90 days to leave the country or find another legal path." I stared at that message for a long time. Samantha had come to the States on a work visa 12 years ago, shifted to a spousal visa when we married. If the marriage dissolved, so did her legal status. I hadn't planned that part. I just follow the law. But consequences, they don't care about intent. I didn't watch Samantha's social media spiral in real time. I didn't need to. Drew sent me screenshots with timestamps, clinical updates like a doctor monitoring a patient's decline. Day 1, Samantha posted a video. Soft lighting, acoustic guitar in the background, her sitting cross-legged on our couch, the one we'd picked out together at a boutique furniture store in Cambridge. The caption read, "Choosing honesty over comfort, my journey to authentic living." She talked for 11 minutes about growth, awakening, finding her true self, mentioned Brett, her new partner, called him a mirror that showed me who I really am. Never once said the word affair. Never said betrayal. Just framed the whole thing as self-discovery. The comments were mixed. Some of her wellness influencer friends cheered her on. So brave. This is what radical honesty looks like. But others, people who knew me, people who'd been at that dinner, they weren't buying it. One comment stood out. "You humiliated your husband in public and called it growth? That's not brave. That's cruel." Day 3. She tried calling the hotel chain's corporate office. Drew had already notified them of the situation, told them I was taking an indefinite leave. They forwarded her call to legal. Legal told her they couldn't discuss personnel matters. She posted a vague story on Instagram about being shut out of conversations that affect your life. Day 5. She tried to access our joint bank account. Locked. Called the bank. They told her the account was flagged, pending legal review. She called Drew's office. His assistant told her all communication had to go through official channels. That's when she called the police. I was sitting in a diner in Vermont, eating a turkey sandwich and reading a book about woodworking when Drew called. She filed a wellness check. Drew said, sounding almost amused, "Told the cops you disappeared, that she was worried you might hurt yourself." I set down my sandwich. "And they found your car at the commuter lot. Ran the plates, saw no red flags. Called me because you'd listed me as your attorney of record. I told them you were on a planned sabbatical, that you checked in with me this morning, and that you were under no legal obligation to inform your estranged spouse of your whereabouts." Estranged spouse, I repeated. That's the first time anyone's called her that. "Get used to it," Drew said. "She's going to realize soon that she has no leverage here. No access to money, no access to you, and a visa that's about to expire. How long until immigration notices?" I asked. "I'd give it 2 weeks, maybe 3. Once the divorce is finalized, her visa status gets reviewed. If she can't prove independent means or find another path to legal residency, she's looking at deportation." I thought about Samantha packing her bags, flying back to Toronto, rebuilding from scratch. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. "What about Oliver?" I asked. Drew paused. "What about him?" "He didn't ask for any of this. His mom blew up his life too." "Jason," Drew said carefully, "you can't save that kid. He's not your responsibility anymore." "I know," I said, but the words felt like glass in my throat. Day 8. Samantha's video view counts started dropping. The algorithm moved on. Her follower count dipped. A wellness brand she'd been partnering with quietly pulled her affiliate link. Day 10. She posted a tearful video. No makeup this time. Hair pulled back, sitting in the guest bedroom. "I'm learning that honesty comes with consequences I didn't anticipate," she said, her voice shaking. I thought I was being brave, but maybe I was just being selfish. I don't know anymore. The comments were harsher this time. "You destroyed a good man and expected applause. Actions have consequences. Welcome to reality." She deleted the video 6 hours later. Drew sent me a final update on day 12. She's hired an immigration lawyer, trying to argue for an extension based on hardship. It's not going to work. She made her choices. I closed the laptop and looked out the window of the cabin I'd rented under James Hartford. Snow was starting to fall, light and quiet, covering everything in white. Somewhere in Boston, Samantha was realizing that the life she'd built was collapsing. And somewhere deeper, in a place I didn't want to examine too closely, I wondered if Oliver was okay. But I didn't call. I didn't reach out. Because some bridges, once burned, don't get rebuilt. You just learn to live on the other side of the river. 3 weeks into my disappearance, I got a message I didn't expect. It came through an old gaming platform, Discord, on an account I'd created years ago to play some strategy game with Oliver. We'd stopped using it when he got into high school, moved on to other interests. I'd forgotten the login existed until my laptop pinged with a notification. The message was from Oliver. He wrote, "Jason, you there?" I stared at the screen for a full minute. Smart kid. He'd found a way to reach me that bypassed Samantha entirely. I typed back, "I'm here." Oliver's next message came quickly. "Mom's losing it. She keeps calling her office. They won't tell her anything." "I know." I responded. "Are you okay?" he asked. That question hit harder than I expected. I sat back in the chair, looked around the cabin. Wooden walls, a fireplace I'd learned to use, shelves of books I'd bought from a secondhand store. Was I okay? I didn't know yet. I typed, "I'm managing." "You." Oliver wrote back, "She cries a lot." Brett moved in. I hate him. My jaw tightened. Brett, the artist, the mirror who showed Samantha her true self, was now living in the house I'd paid for, sleeping in the bed I'd bought, probably eating dinners at the table where Oliver did his homework. "I'm sorry, kid," I sent. His response came fast. "It's not your fault. She did this." I stared at those 4 words. She did this. From a 14-year-old who'd just watched his mother implode his family for the second time in his life. "You need anything?" I typed. "Money? Help with school." Oliver wrote, "No. Drew set up something for me. An account for college. He said you did it." Drew hadn't told me he'd done that. I'd asked him to make sure Oliver had options, but I didn't know he'd move that fast. I responded, "You deserve to have options. Whatever happens between me and your mom, that doesn't change. Can I visit you sometime?" Oliver asked. My throat tightened. I wanted to say yes. Wanted to give this kid an escape route from whatever chaos Samantha was creating. But I also knew that opening that door meant staying connected to a life I was trying to leave behind. I typed carefully, "When you turn 18, you can go anywhere you want. Until then, this is complicated." "I get it," Oliver wrote back. I sent one more message. "Oliver, you're a good kid. Better than most adults I know. Don't let this make you cynical." His final message appeared. Too late. Then he logged off before I could respond. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling something I'd been avoiding for weeks. Guilt. Not for leaving Samantha. She'd earned that. But for leaving Oliver in the wreckage. Drew called an hour later. "You set up a trust for Oliver." I asked when I picked up. "You told me to make sure he had options," Drew said. "I made sure." "How much?" "Enough for 4 years at any state school. Maybe more if he's smart with it," Drew explained. "It's untouchable by Samantha. The kid gets it when he turns 18, or earlier if he needs it for verified educational expenses." "Thank you," I said quietly. "Jason," Drew said, his tone shifting. "He's going to reach out again. You ready for that?" I looked out the window at the trees, bare branches against a gray sky. "I don't know, but I'm not cutting him off. He didn't do anything wrong. Just be careful," Drew warned. "Samantha's going to use him if she can. She's desperate." "She can try," I said. But Oliver's smarter than she gives him credit for. For weeks in, Samantha finally understood the situation she was in. Drew forwarded me an email from her attorney, a guy named Paul something who worked out of a strip mall office in Somerville. The email was frantic, full of legal jargon that boiled down to one thing: panic. Drew called to walk me through it. Her lawyer's claiming the prenup is invalid because she signed under duress, Drew said, sounding amused. "Apparently, your father pressured her into it, and she didn't have independent counsel. She had her own lawyer," I said. "I paid for it. Guy named Richard Feldman out of Cambridge." "That's what I told them," Drew said. Sent copies of the retainer agreement she signed, the consultation notes, everything. "They've got nothing." "What about the visa?" "That's where it gets interesting," Drew said. "Immigration sent her a notice. She has 60 days to prove she has legal grounds to remain in the country. The spousal visa terminates with the divorce, and since the divorce is based on infidelity, there's no pathway to adjustment of status. So she has to leave, unless she finds another legal route," Drew explained. "Work visa, student visa, something. But those take time and money. And right now, she has neither." I thought about Samantha packing up, flying back to Toronto, starting over. Part of me felt satisfied. The bigger part just felt empty. "What's she going to do?" I asked. "Don't know, don't care," Drew said. "My job is to protect you, not to solve her problems." "What about Oliver?" "He's a minor with U.S. residency through his biological father's citizenship," Drew said. "He's not affected by her immigration status. If she leaves, He could stay with relatives or enter the foster system, but that's not your problem to solve. Drew, I said. I know, he said, softer now. I know you care about the kid. But you can't save everyone, Jason. Sometimes the best thing you can do is save yourself. 2 days later, Samantha posted another video. This one was different. No soft lighting, no acoustic music. Just her, sitting in the guest bedroom, eyes red, makeup smudged. I made mistakes, she said to the camera, her voice shaking. I thought I was being brave, but I was really just being selfish. And now I'm facing consequences I didn't anticipate. My visa is expiring. I might have to leave the country. And my son is caught in the middle of something he didn't ask for. She paused, wiped her eyes. Jason, if you're watching this, please. We need to talk. Not about us, about Oliver. He needs stability. He needs help. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but he does. The video had 200 views. 15 comments. Most of them were brutal. Should have thought about your son before you blew up your marriage. Actions meet consequences. Welcome to adulthood. Using your kid to manipulate your ex is pretty low, even for you. Drew called again that night. She's trying to bait you, he said. Don't respond. I'm not going to, I said. But Drew, if Oliver needs something, I'll handle it, Drew promised. The trust is set up. If he needs housing, education, anything legitimate, it's covered. But you don't contact her. You don't give her an opening. Understood, I said. But that night, lying in bed in the cabin, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about Oliver. 14 years old, watching his mother spiral, watching the only father figure he'd known disappear. He didn't deserve any of this. Neither did I. But life doesn't deal in fair. It deals in choices and consequences. Samantha made her choice. Now she was living with the consequences. And so was everyone around her. 3 years. That's how long it took for the dust to settle. I'd rebuilt myself piece by piece in that time. The cabin in New Hampshire became permanent. I bought it outright under James Hartford. Paid cash. No paper trail leading back to Jason Hartley. Started working with my hands instead of spreadsheets. Picked up woodworking, then carpentry, then something I never expected, driftwood sculpture. There was a guy in town, old-timer named Bill, who taught me the basics. How to see the shape hiding inside weathered wood. How to let the material guide you instead of forcing it. I'd started making small pieces, selling them at local craft fairs. Nothing fancy, just honest work that didn't require conference calls or corporate politics. The hotel sold. Drew handled it quietly. Found a buyer who wanted the whole portfolio. I walked away with enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life if I stayed modest. Invested most of it, kept some liquid, donated a chunk to a scholarship fund in my father's name. Samantha got deported. Took 11 months, but immigration finally processed everything. She tried every angle, hired 3 different lawyers, even attempted to claim asylum based on some fabricated story about persecution in Canada. None of it worked. She flew back to Toronto on a cold January morning, and according to Drew, she never stopped blaming me. Oliver stayed in the States. His biological father, a guy I'd never met, suddenly developed a conscience and took custody. They moved to Colorado. Oliver and I kept in touch through that Discord channel, messages every few weeks. He was doing okay. Not great, but okay. Applied to art schools. The trust Drew set up covered everything. I changed my name legally. Not completely, just enough. Jason Hartford instead of Jason Hartley. Got a driver's license, opened bank accounts, filed taxes. Became someone new without erasing who I'd been. The magazine article happened by accident. Some writer doing a piece on coastal artists found my work at a gallery in Portsmouth. She wanted to interview the guy making sculptures from beach debris. I agreed but kept it vague. Talked about starting over, about disappearing to see clearly. Never mentioned Samantha. Never mentioned the hotels. The article ran in a small regional publication. I didn't think anyone would notice. I was wrong. The beach was empty that morning, the kind of quiet you only get before sunrise. I was working on a new piece, something abstract, curves that mimicked wave patterns. The wood was silver gray, smoothed by years of salt water and sand. I heard footsteps behind me, but didn't turn. Tourists sometimes wandered down here, took photos, moved on. But these footsteps stopped. Hesitated. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years cut through the sound of the waves. Jason. I straightened slowly, turned around. Samantha stood 20 feet away, wearing jeans and a simple jacket, hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked older, thinner. The polish was gone, replaced by something raw and uncertain. When she saw me fully, when our eyes met, something in her expression just shattered. Her face went pale, her mouth opened slightly, and I watched 3 years of carefully constructed denial collapse in real time. She'd found me, but she hadn't prepared for what she'd find. "Hi," she said finally, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't respond immediately, just looked at her. This woman who'd once been my wife, who'd blown up my life in front of everyone I knew, who'd spent 3 years probably imagining this moment. "Hi," I said eventually. No emotion, no anger, just acknowledgement. "I've been looking for you," Samantha said, taking a tentative step closer. "The article, I saw your work. I knew it was you. And now you found me," I said. She wrapped her arms around herself, a defensive gesture I remembered from arguments years ago. "I needed to see you. To explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said. "You said everything that night at the restaurant." "That was a mistake," she said quickly. "The way I did it, the timing, all of it. I've regretted it every day since." I set down the piece of driftwood I was holding. "Samantha, I don't care." Those 4 words landed harder than any insult could have. I saw it in her face, the realization that I wasn't angry, wasn't hurt, wasn't anything. I'd moved past her entirely. "You look different," she said, voice faltering. "I'm different," I said. "I had to be." "Oliver misses you," she tried. "Oliver knows how to reach me," I said. "We talk." Her face shifted, surprise mixed with something that looked like betrayal. "He never told me." "Why would he?" I asked. "You didn't exactly earn his trust." Samantha's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Jason. I just need you to understand what I was going through." "I understand perfectly," I said, turning back to my work. "You wanted something different. You got it. Now you're living with it." "That's it?" she asked, voice rising slightly. 3 years, and that's all you have to say?" I looked at her one more time. "What do you want, Samantha? Forgiveness? Permission to feel better about what you did?" "I can't give you either of those things." She stood there, tears running down her face, and I felt nothing but a distant sort of pity. "Goodbye, Samantha," I said, picking up the driftwood again. She didn't leave immediately. Stood there for another minute, maybe 2, waiting for something that wasn't going to come. Then finally, she turned and walked away. I watched her go, just for a moment. Then I went back to my work. The wood was still there, still needed shaping. And unlike some things, it didn't ask questions I couldn't answer. 8 months after Samantha found me on the beach, my phone rang with Oliver's number. "I'm 18, he said without preamble. "Can I come visit now?" I smiled for the first time in weeks. "Yeah, kid. You can come visit." He showed up 3 days later, driving a beat-up Honda Civic he bought with money from a summer job. Taller than I remembered, broader in the shoulders, but still the same quiet kid who'd rather sketch than talk. We didn't hug, just nodded at each other. He looked around the cabin, at the workshop I'd built, at the half-finished sculptures lined up against the wall. "This is cool," Oliver said simply. "Thanks," I replied. "You hungry?" We ate dinner at a local diner, the kind with checkerboard floors and waitresses who called everyone Han. Oliver ordered a burger, ate methodically, then finally spoke. "Mom came to see you," he said. "She told me." "She did," I confirmed. "She said you were cruel to her." Oliver continued, watching my reaction. "I wasn't cruel," I said. "I was honest." Oliver nodded slowly. "That's what I figured. She wanted me to ask you to reconsider, to maybe talk to her again." I told her I wasn't going to do that. "Good," I said. "That's between her and me. You don't need to be in the middle." "She's struggling," Oliver said, not defending her, just stating facts. "Living with her sister in Toronto, working at some boutique. She's still trying to make the wellness influencer thing work, but nobody cares anymore." "What about you?" I asked. "How are you doing?" Oliver shrugged. "I'm okay. My dad's all right, I guess. We don't talk much, but he lets me do my thing. Got accepted to Rhode Island School of Design. Full ride with the trust you set up." "That's incredible, Oliver," I said, meaning it. "Yeah," he said, then looked at me directly. "Why'd you do it? Set up the trust, I mean." "You didn't have to." "Because you deserved a chance," I said. "What your mom did, what I did, none of that was your fault. You got caught in the crossfire. Least I could do was make sure you had options." Oliver's jaw tightened. She says you abandoned us. I abandoned her. I corrected. Not you. There's a difference. I know, Oliver said quietly. I just wanted to hear you say it. We spent the next 3 days fishing, working on a sculpture together, talking about everything except the past. On his last morning, we stood by his car in the driveway. You can come back any time, I told him. Doors always open. Oliver nodded. Thanks, Jason. For everything. For not being like her. He drove away, and I stood there watching until the car disappeared around the bend. He'd be fine. Better than fine. He'd survive the worst of it and come out stronger. Some kids do that. They take the chaos life hands them and forge it into something solid. A year after Oliver's visit, I got an email from Drew. Subject line, she's gone. I opened it with coffee in hand, early morning light streaming through the cabin windows. The message was brief. Samantha had moved to Vancouver, remarried some tech entrepreneur she'd met through her dwindling social media presence. She'd signed papers relinquishing any future claims to anything connected to me, the hotels, the estate, all of it. In exchange, I'd agreed not to pursue her for the legal fees she still owed from the divorce proceedings. She wanted closure, Drew wrote. Figured you'd want to know it's finally done. I sat with that information for a while. Samantha, remarried, starting over again. Part of me hoped she'd learn something. The bigger part didn't care enough to wonder. I typed a response to Drew. Thanks for everything. Send me a final invoice. We're square after this. His reply came fast. Invoice? Jason, you paid me 3 years ago. Everything since then has been friendship. I smiled at that. Some people show up when things fall apart and stay long after the dust settles. Drew was one of those people. Life settled into a rhythm after that. I sold pieces at galleries up and down the coast, made enough to live comfortably, bought the lot next to my cabin, built a proper workshop with better tools, started teaching woodworking to teenagers through a local community center, found out I was decent at it. Oliver visited twice a year, always unannounced, always welcome. He graduated from RISD with honors, got a job at a design firm in Providence. Still quiet, still thoughtful, but confident now in ways he hadn't been at 14. One afternoon, while we were working on a commission piece together, he asked the question I'd been expecting for years. Do you regret it? Oliver said, walking away like you did. I thought about it honestly. No, I regret that it had to happen. I regret that you got hurt. But I don't regret leaving. Staying would have destroyed me. Oliver nodded, understanding in his eyes. She asks about you sometimes. Wants to know if you're happy. What do you tell her? I asked. I tell her you're building things, Oliver said. That you're good at it. I don't tell her anything else because it's none of her business. Smart kid, I said. I learned from the best, he replied. 18 months later, I met someone. A teacher from the community center, a woman named Grace who taught pottery and had a laugh that reminded me what joy sounded like. We took things slow, no rushing, no promises I couldn't keep. She knew my history, knew I'd been burned, never pushed. Grace met Oliver during one of his visits. They talked about art and technique and color theory while I made dinner. Watching them connect, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, contentment. That night, after Oliver left and Grace went home, I sat on the porch with a beer and looked at the stars. Thought about the man I'd been 5 years ago, standing in that restaurant watching his wife detonate his life. Thought about the man I'd become, the one who'd learned that sometimes the only way forward is to burn the bridges behind you. Some people say revenge is about making someone pay, but that's not what this was. This was about refusing to let someone else's choices define my worth, about walking away with my dignity intact and building something better from the wreckage. Samantha got her awakening. Brett, Dominic, whoever came next, that was her journey. I got mine too, just took a different path. And standing there under those stars, beer in hand, workshop full of unfinished projects, phone showing a text from Oliver saying he got a promotion, I realized something important. I'd won, not because she lost, but because I'd become someone I could respect. And in the end, that's the only victory that matters.